Hi, everyone. I'm meteorologist Joe Chaffee on this Friday morning as we start that again. Hi, everyone. I'm meteorologist Joe Chaffee on this Friday morning as we head into a weekend, which I think, by the way, for my area here is not going to be bad at all. Just a few hours on Saturday morning for some spots that get a little rain, and that's it. I mentioned yesterday how unimpressed I was with the remnants of Tropical Storm Cindy, and I remain so. And this morning's radar kind of shows you why. We've got there are three players here. You've got a weather front up to the north that's heading southeastward. Cindy's remnants actually are in two pieces. We have this first area of rain right here, and this was part of this was the rain area that wound up affecting much of the Gulf Coast from southeastern Louisiana eastward. That came in early in the game with regards to Tropical Storm Cindy, so that ran out way ahead. The actual circulation formed its own area of rain and thunderstorms. That came into Texas and Louisiana, the western part of Louisiana, and is now running to the northeast. And if you notice on the radar here, it's just not that impressive. It's evolved into a stick. If this were going to be a big rain event for any area, you would have to have the front basically pressing down and enhancing all of this tropical moisture. That's just not happening. The front stays completely separate. You've got this lead area of moisture that's run out way ahead and is actually weakening as it moves eastward. And then you have the actual circulation center of Cindy, which is doing whatever it's doing on its own, but it really doesn't have much else to work on. So I think for the most part, yeah, then we're going to run the risk of some downpours running around today and into Saturday morning. But I'm just, like I said, I'm just not impressed by this. You look at the satellite loops this morning, you've got these storms up to the north, you've got a lot of clouds there. You've got these clouds here running northeastward. Right in here is probably what's left of Cindy's circulation. Might even be able to pick it out a little better on the water vapor imagery. But even here, it's hard to find. It just really isn't that much. There's just not much there. So sometimes with these tropical storms, you can get the remnants to produce some significant rainfalls clearly all the way up through the Appalachians and into the Northeast. This is just not going to be one of those cases. And we're just going to just showing around a couple of satellites here, and you can see that in the Gulf of Mexico, not much there. And you know what? While I have you up, let's look at the West, where we haven't been paying too much attention to you guys, as you've just been burning up in the Southwest. But it's mostly dry. If you look closely, you can see on that first frame as you start to look at the darker gray. This is all the morning low cloudiness and fog that occurs off of central and southern California. But you're basically in a big ridge position here in the west, and you're going to be fine. In fact, I'm going to start with the Southwest because it has been hot there. One of the things that's happening, and I've noticed picking it up on the models, the extension of this heat wave is less impressive with every run. Now, this is for today, and look, it gets up into the hundreds to 110 here in the Southwest all the time. You see you see this media just keeps making some media makes a big deal out of every weather event, and the hyperbole is just totally out of control. It just is. And I pay no attention to it anymore. Anyway, that's my little rant of the day. Even on Saturday, the heat starts to shrink back up in this area. Instead of getting into the hundreds, it barely it's into the 90s early. Then it jumps later in the day. But this is typical stuff here, folks. It's a little extreme in some areas, grant you, but here's the early middle of next week. You get a little bit of easing going on to some of the extreme temperatures. They're not that far north, and even up into the Northwest, that it looks like that's not even going to be happening there to the same degree. Let me just switch regions. We'll take a look at the temperature profile in the Northwest. No, that's the wrong one. That's the one I just had. Let's see. And got the northeast, north central. Up. I guess we got to use the west. Okay. So let me just back it away. And here we go. So we're starting out with, today. There's today. Some areas of the Northwest will see some 90s, but, and up into Oregon and Washington. And here's one hot day as we go into Monday with temperatures over 100 inland, though, not near the coast. Earlier, a few days ago, it looked like it was going to be 90s and 90s and hundreds all the way up all the way west to almost to the immediate coast. That does not appear to be the case. So somebody's having a heat wave. It's in the west, but it's nothing crazy, in my particular opinion. Let's stay with the GFS. Let's look at the upper air going forward. And we'll look at the pattern, and then we'll come back to the short range, because I want to touch upon what I think is going to happen tomorrow. So, all right, so here we go. We've been talking about the fact that we have this persistent trough in the east. It disappears every once in a while for a couple of days, and that's when it gets hot. But that's it. Ridge in the west, that's where the hot weather is, and you have a little trough just off the west coast. So right there, and that saves the northwest coastline from getting too hot for too long. And now we're going to go backwards and keep going forward. Now what happens is, that trough is going to pull out, and there's another trough in the middle of next week that starts to come into the northern Rockies. So we're going to get one of these temporary ridges here in the eastern part of the United States toward the end of next week. But you notice here it doesn't last. And this is one of the things I've been picking up on over the last couple of months, and I've said this, I brought this up. The ridge in the east, which has been almost a semi-permanent feature for the last couple of years, it seems now, and this started back late in the winter, and this trend continues. The ridge in the east keeps popping up, but every time it does, it lasts for a shorter and shorter time frame. There's been we're spending more and more time in a trough position in the east than in a ridge position, and you can see on this case too. Here we are at the end of June, beginning of July. The ridge appears and disappears, so it might get hot for a day or two in the east late next week, but that's it. And then another trough sets up, and there you have it. It just swings on through. Now we're into the week of the 4th of July, and this is a pretty active jet stream for the first week of July. It's pretty far south. The westerlies down into North Carolina, basically have a flat ridge out in the west. That's going to keep it hot there, but again, nothing crazy hot. And then that's it. And by the way, in the southwest, when it's 112, that's not crazy hot. That's just hot for them. So, anyhow, now let's go to what I expect in terms of sensible weather, which is not always that sensible. But anyway, let's roll back. And okay, so the GFS, again, remember, this is total precip here, so don't go crazy. This is not going to be like widespread rain. I think what's going to happen tomorrow morning with the remnants of Cindy, which you can't even find anymore in terms of an identifiable surface feature. But here's our cold front coming through. I think there's going to be basically a stick of rain. It's going to look on the radar. It's going to look like a stick or a little tight ball that's going to roll through here tomorrow morning, with some places getting downpours for a few hours. By mid-morning, it'll start to turn partly sunny from west to east, and tomorrow afternoon it should be at least partly sunny everywhere from eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England, and the rest of the weekend is fine. So if you can get through those couple of hours, and by the way, it wouldn't surprise me if some places, even tomorrow morning for a couple of hours, just stay cloudy and get very little, if anything, in terms of precip. So that front rolls through. You got a nice big cool high coming in for Sunday and Monday and for Tuesday, and I think it's going to mean for some nice weather with comfortable temperatures and humidity. There will be some clouds around, but not much else. In the west, you've got the setup for the hot air with east and northeast winds coming down the mountains to the coast. But again, nothing too outrageous in my view. And then you've got another weather front that approaches as we go into the first week of July. That's a sign of that next trough. And by the way, here's the setup for next weekend. For late next week, you get a ridge off the East Coast. So this is where it could get hot late next week for a day or two, maybe Thursday and Friday and into Saturday. But Thursday and maybe Friday would probably be the two hotter days next week, where you'll probably see some 90s show up. And then here comes the front. Another cool high comes down, and at least so far, going into the first week of July, it could be a whole lot worse for those of you who don't like heat and humidity. Those of you who don't like that don't like heat and humidity, it certainly could be a whole lot worse than the picture that we're painting here going forward. Have a great Friday and a great weekend. Don't forget to check out all the latest website posts on meteorologistjoechaffee.com. Angry Ben has New York City covered on nycweathernow.com. You can go to my Facebook page and like that. That would be great. Meteorologist Joe Chaffee. That humming noise you hear is my grass being cut. And you can download my app and subscribe to my forecasts for New York City, Long Island, Connecticut, Hudson Valley, and Eastern Pennsylvania. The link for that is on my website. The app subscription. The app is free. The subscription is just 99 cents a month, and you get my forecast. You don't get computer-generated digital forecasts that change every 5 minutes. Have a great Friday, folks. Be safe, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.